One of the things I've learned with my daughter's upcoming high school graduation is that each child's graduation hits a little differently. When my son graduated from high school, he was heading to Israel a few months later to make Aliyah, enter the army. I dropped him off at the airport. I knew he was going to stay in Israel. I knew that would be his home. I was excited. I was proud. The emotions were far different from your typical college drop-off. When it came time for my daughter Lily to go to college, well, she's in school 35 blocks north from where I live. Her drop-off was during COVID, so it was highly regulated about where you could go and who could go and when you could go. I could meet her for lunch or coffee, at least when she agrees to. It's all good. My daughter Danielle, she is heading for Bloomington, Indiana in the fall, and the idea of dropping her off at school is making me, let's just say, a little emotional. While she may be counting down the days until she begins this amazing adventure in her life, August 7th is circled on my calendar as a reminder that this chapter of parenting her is coming to a close. 18 years. That's what we get with our children, to raise them, shape them, nurture them. I know they come home for vacations, they'll be around in the summers, some will even move back home after college, but we all know that with the departure for college, as new doors open for her, chapters are closing for her parents. I'm reminded of a beautiful rabbinic text from the Talmudic tractate of Sotah. I actually heard it at Rabbi Kornsgold's ordination last week. The sages teach, a teacher accompanies a student only until the outskirts of the city. And what the text is saying is that we can only take our students, our children, so far. We can only teach them so much. At some point, we need to let them go, let them move forward in their lives, make their own decisions, navigate their way through college registration, social dynamics, advocating for themselves on behalf of themselves to professors and others. In other words, this text is just another reminder that we don't move into the dorms with our children. It's a bittersweet moment. On the one hand, the letting go, which will come with graduation in a couple weeks, it's challenging. It's emotional. And on the other hand, there is the knowledge and joy that we have raised our children to leave us and become self-actualized adults. And then to see them actually do it. And all the while asking ourselves, have we done enough? Have we rooted them enough? Is this the end of our children listening to, hearing our voices? Or will our voice continue to resonate for them as they move forward? Now, Jews have been asking this question for thousands of years. The power, the eternal nature of voice, of sound. This morning is Shavuot, as we've mentioned, the festival when we commemorate the giving of the Torah, the moment when the entire community of Israel heard the voice of God emanate from Sinai. The moment when God revealed God's self not just to Moses, but to the entire nation. We relive that moment. Each time we remove the Torah from the ark or study Torah, striving to hear that voice of God again. And the question is, does God still speak to us? Can we discern? Can we hear that voice? In Heschel's book, Heavenly Torah, as refracted through the generations, he has a chapter titled, A Mighty Voice and No More, / A Mighty Voice Without End. It might be one of my favorite sources of rabbinic teaching. There are those who say that when the Israelites stood at Sinai, that moment was the final moment of revelation. That was it. God spoke once, and after giving of the Torah, there can be no further innovation. Whatever some student will teach, whatever some rabbi will preach in the future, was already said by God to Moses, and we are just simply uncovering, discovering that which has always been there. And there are those who say that when the Israelites stood at Sinai, that was neither the end of revelation, nor was it a complete revelation. That voice, the voice of God, continues to speak to us even after we left Sinai. The Torah is revealed each and every day. It's renewed, halakha, Jewish law, Jewish tradition, each and every day. And the important verse here in this conversation comes from Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 19. Et hadivarim ha'ele diber Adonai el kol kahalchem bahar mitoch ha'esh ha'enan v'harafel kol gadol velo yasaf. God spoke these words to your whole congregation at the moment out of the fire and the dense clouds. Kol gadol velo yasaf. I didn't translate that last phrase. And these are the two words that are critical. Velo yasaf. And they get interpreted in two ways. The first is that velo yasaf, we don't add to it, means no more. God spoke, and God will never again reveal God's self so publicly. This was a moment. The Israelites, our ancestors, stood at Sinai. But the minute that moment was over, God went back into the background. God departed. God disappeared, never to emerge and never to speak to us again. The other explanation of Velo Yasaf, according to Rashi, is Velo Pasak. God did not cease. That voice is mighty. It is eternally enduring. Velo Yasaf, without end. And if you wonder where we land on the question of which understanding of Velo Yasaf do we accept, meaning do we accept that it was never spoken again, or do we accept that it is a voice without end? Just think about the blessing that Isabella said when she stood at the Torah, Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. We thank God, we praise God, who gives notein in the present tense. God already gave it. But the truth is God is still giving Torah without cessation. No matter where we are, God's voice is eternal. It's enduring. And if we are attuned, if we direct our ear, that voice can be discerned every day. Friends, in a few minutes, we will recite Yizkor. We will remember loved ones no longer with us. We'll imagine being with them, speaking with them, listening, perhaps hearing their voices once again. Is that really possible? Well, maybe it depends on how you understand the phrase Velo Yasaf. On the one hand, death is real. When a person permanently stops breathing, a heart stops beating, there is no turning back. That person is no longer alive, and in a strictly physical sense, they will not be speaking to you anymore. But we're not just physical beings. We are spiritual beings with mystical lines of connections to our ancestors and to our descendants. The Midrash teaches God said to Moses, "Behold, your days are coming close to die." The Midrash asks, do days die? Rather, it comes to teach us that when righteous people die, it's only their days that die. They themselves live on, for righteous people, even in their death, are called alive. And what the Midrash is trying to communicate to us, that is, as long as a righteous person's children and students and friends are continuing his or her legacy, that person is considered to be alive. As long as there are people who perform actions and achieve morality and piety as a result of the inspiration that our ancestors gave us and set for us, well, that person is still very much alive and continues to speak to us. That's what the Talmud meant when it says any Torah scholar who has his Torah statements quoted after his death is considered as if his lips are moving in the grave. For example, Rashi, the biblical commentator I quoted above. His lips move constantly due to the millions of Jews who have studied his words, heard his voice throughout the ages. His legacy has been alive and well for thousands of years. And what's true for Rashi is true for our loved ones. Their voices are powerful. Their voices are enduring. Their voices remain present. Yizkor is a sacred moment of attunement. It's a speed bump in our otherwise busy, noisy lives to pause and remember the lives of those we have lost. Reflect on those lives. Consider their values. Remember the example they set based on how they chose to live their lives. If you listen, you can hear it. And maybe, just maybe in these sacred moments, we'll choose to speak to our loved ones and engage them in conversation. When we stand to say Yizkor in a minute, close your eyes. Imagine walking back into a room in the home in which you grew up. See your father, your mother, your husband, your wife, your child, your brother or sister, other relatives, other friends. Look into their eyes. Listen to their voices. Speak with your loved ones. Maybe you'll introduce them to new family members. Maybe you'll thank them for all they did, for being a great link in the chain of those who have carried with them these sacred fragments of memory, generation after generation after generation. Like all of our teachers, they took us as far as they could go before they could go no further. But they live on, and the lives they touched, the people they nurtured, the last words we spoke with our parents and others who are gone have not really been spoken yet. Kol gadol velo yasaf. It is a mighty, enduring voice without end. It's true for God's revelation. It's true for our children who will inevitably leave home. Our voices are strong. They'll survive. And it's true for those we remember this morning. Yizkor provides us with the precious moments to turn to our loved ones, those who are still here and those who are here through the gift of memory, and to say and hear these words, Yizkor Elohim, God remembers. Let us remember as well.